We have our 2003 Jeep Wrangler TJ, needs a clutch, and ordinarily a clutch is not a real big deal. It's a pain in the butt, but I've done plenty of them. But there is one thing that concerns me on this vehicle here, and I'll show you what it is. This Jeep, since it's an '03, it has the infamous boxed frame where Chrysler didn't put any weep holes, so the frames would rust from the inside out. This frame is pretty solid. I really have no complaints except for the skid plate. Now, there's 3 bolts that hold the skid plate on each side, and there's captive nuts that are attached to steel plates inside the frame that those bolts screw into. And if they twist when I'm trying to take it out, I'm going to have to cut them, which means I'm going to be welding on this frame, which I really don't want to do. So, I've done one of these before. That Jeep right there is a '98, and I did a frame off restoration on that. And I was able to pull the engine and transmission as a whole with the chassis off of the frame. The original frame, yes, the bolts just twisted. I had to cut them, which was no big deal because I had a new frame. But these, I don't want to risk it. So what I'm going to try to do is something that I've never done before. I haven't seen anybody else do this on YouTube, and I've been watching these videos, and so this is what we're going to attempt. We're going to attempt to change the clutch by pulling the engine. Sounds like a huge hassle, but really it's no worse than changing the clutch the normal way, dropping the skid plate. And I don't have a transmission jack, that's another thing. So dropping the skid plate, the weight of the gearbox, and the transfer case. The transfer case is offset, so even if you have a transmission jack, there's a chance that the thing getting lopsided and tipping over to one side. So we're going to pull the engine to change this clutch. I'm not too worried about getting it out, but when we have to go back together, the alignment has to be pretty spot on. So we're going to go ahead and pull this engine out, change the clutch, and then I have a leveler for my hoist, so that may help. So we'll see what happens. Here we go. Okay, we've got everything disconnected. We've got all the bell housing bolts out. We've got the motor mounts broke loose, and we've got the engine lifted up almost high enough to clear the mounts. So we also have a floor jack under the bell housing. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. Do yourself a favor if you're doing this job. Stuff some rags down in the exhaust pipes. I was doing an engine swap in an OT Dodge Ram pickup and dropped a bolt down in the Y pipe. I had to pull the engine out, take the exhaust system completely apart, take the Y pipe out, and turn it upside down to get that bolt back. So yeah, it could have all been avoided with a couple of rags. Also put a rag in the throttle body. You don't want anything to get dropped down there either. So, all right, let me pull this out and get it on the ground, see what we got. Well, we got our engine out and down on the ground here, and just taking a look at this pressure plate, how these prongs or tabs for the pressure plate are completely worn. I've never seen a clutch do that before. It makes me think that maybe the throwout bearing is seized. So let's climb in and take a look. Well, here's our throwout bearing, and yeah, that's a problem. I've never had one come off in my hand like that. So that thing is flopping around on there. Could be what caused that uneven wear, or that crazy wear that was on the pressure plate. So let's take the pressure plate and the clutch disc off and see what we got. All right, it's actually not as bad as I thought it would be. The pilot bearing is destroyed. I've never seen that. but I'm just seeing a little bit of heat scoring, and there's no grooves in the flywheel. The pressure plate and clutch disc actually just look like normal wear and tear. So yeah, I think I am going to replace this flywheel, though. I don't trust it, and you can get a flywheel for less than $100 now. So it's actually about the same price as you would pay a machine shop to turn it down. So I am going to replace the flywheel. I'm not going to put an OEM clutch back in. This Jeep belongs to my son. He owns a tree service and he uses it in his work. So we need something a little beefier than an OEM daily driver clutch. So let me go ahead and get the parts on order, and when we get them installed, we'll be ready to put it back together. Well, we got our new clutch assembly here, including the flywheel. I went with Luke, or however you pronounce that. I did go with the heavy duty clutch, which so far the only thing I can see different is that the clutch disc has 5 springs instead of 4. So I'm going to go ahead and get this put together and get the engine ready to go back in. Here we go. I had mentioned that I couldn't see any difference between the OEM clutch and the heavy duty clutch, other than just the springs on the clutch disc, there being 5 springs. But when I compare them side by side, then oh yeah, if you look, there's extra riveting, plus the surface area on the clutch disc and the pressure plate. The heavy duty clutch is a lot bigger. So hopefully when he's pulling on trees to offer a counterweight when somebody's trying to bring a tree down, we'll have plenty of area on this clutch, and it won't smoke like the old one did. All right, well, we've got it all together. Got the pilot bearing in. I did take the motor mounts off of the engine, hoping it'll help a little bit with the alignment. And we've got our new throwout bearing in. So let me get this put up and over and get it lined up and see what happens. Shouldn't be any worse than doing an engine swap, but we'll see. Well, we're almost there. What you want to watch for is that transmission shaft to make sure it doesn't hang up on the pressure plate. So you give yourself plenty of distance when you're getting the engine lowered down, and then it's got to be pushed in to get the spline on the gearbox and the clutch disc to line up. I'm really happy I took the motor mounts off. It's making it a lot easier. So here we go. I'm going to final push. Well, we got it together. We got everything lined up. I've got 2 bell housing bolts in it. Having the leveler on the hoist sure helped. So yeah, I was able to get it put together and lined up. Do yourself a favor if you're doing this job. Before you put the motor mounts back in, put the top bell housing bolts on, because for whatever reason, Chrysler put these wonderful Torx, and this one's an E12 on the top. The rest of them are hex head, and I could not find an E12 Torx wrench, so I had to use my socket and put a whole bunch of extensions together to get those 2 bolts out. Well, right now I'm just going to put them in the top, tighten them down, and lift the engine up, put the motor mounts back on, and it'll be done. So let's finish this up, get it back on the mounts, and get the hoist put away and see where we are. Okay, that's it. We got him back down on the motor mounts, and all the bell housing bolts are in. So I'm going to get this finished up and get it back to my son. It really wasn't that much worse than changing a clutch the conventional way. In fact, I kind of prefer it. I was able to sit on my handy dandy nice comfy milk crate and change the clutch and the flywheel. I was able to get on the bolts with a torque wrench. I had a lot better leverage than trying to lay underneath the vehicle and torque those flywheel bolts to 105 foot-pounds. Laying on your side doing that and keeping the engine from moving is quite a feat, where I was able to attack it just on the garage floor. So yeah, that was a real blessing to be able to do it that way. He still gets a new clutch. It's just a little bit more work for me. and I really don't mind. I'd rather do that than have those bolts spin on the skid plate. You can get kits for these TJs. You can get any kind of kit to fix the frame. It's a known problem, but it depends on what kind of welder you are. And I'm not the greatest welder. I can weld, I can get by. But for something like a skid plate, I would want a professional job. And I just don't have the welder or the skills at my disposal at this time. So I went this route. He still gets a new clutch. And the only thing I broke was I broke one radiator bolt. So that was it. Everything else came out. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and take care.